MAPC with those dollars, which will allow us to hear tonight. They're going to make a presentation. But the most important piece of tonight is that all of you are here, and I'm glad that Lynn Cable TV is here, because we'll be back in on September 17th as we move forward to try and understand what the community feels is important and how we can repurpose what has been a key piece of our community for a long time. So I want to welcome you all for being here. Thanks for being part of this. And again, your input's very important. And I'd like to, I know there's some councils here, but I want to introduce Councilor Wayne Losey, who wants to say a few words, and then we're going to get right into the presentation. And once the presentation is completed, really, it's important that your input and the community's input is a part of this decision. And we're glad you're all here tonight again. Thank you. And Wayne?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hi, everybody. It's nice to see this many people come out tonight. I do want to recognize specifically Diana Chakutis, counselor in the rear, for attending. Thank you, Diana. Next to Diana is Brian Field, counselor at large. And Rick Starbert, counselor Ward 2. Again, I don't want to be redundant, but we are here for a reason, to look at the repurpose of Union Hospital. And I'm glad all of you have found time in this your busy schedule to come by tonight. And I hope we have a lot of good ideas that come up, and something that we can do eventually to make a good out of this bad situation we found ourselves in. So thank you again, and I just want to bring up the Metropolitan folks. Josh, whenever you're ready. I'll be around if anyone has questions afterwards, and thanks for coming.
Thank you, Councilor Losey, and thank you, Mayor. Also, in addition to the councilors that Councilor Losey recognized, we also have Councilor Fields and Councilor LaPierre as well, and a representative from Senator Crichton's office as well this evening. So, full house, and thank you all for coming this evening.
Can't even hear her.
Okay. All right, and I'll speak more into the microphone. And the other thing, before I get started, is I'll ask, I was standing in the back and I did notice that there was a little bit of a reading test on the screen, so I welcome anyone to come forward. There's plenty of seats up front, and the presentation looks a little small from the back, so I'd welcome you to come forward. So here we are this evening, along with myself. I did introduce myself. Thank you very much. So I'm Josh Fiala. I'm from the Metropolitan Area Planning Council. I'm a senior regional planner there. I'm an architect and urban designer, and we're happy to be helping you all in the city of Lynn with this interesting exercise. Along with me has been working principal planner in our office, Cynthia Wall, who is not with us this evening, and also the director of land use at MAPC, Mark Rassicott, is here helping in the back of the room as well. For those of you who don't know, Metropolitan Area Planning Council is a regional planning agency. There are 13 in the state. We are the largest and cover the area around the Boston metropolitan area, roughly the communities within the 495 belt. There are 101 communities. We provide technical assistance, municipal collaboration services, planning assistance, transportation assistance, and the city of Lynn has engaged our help in looking at the Union Hospital property and trying to understand what potential opportunities there may be for the property in the future. So our program for this evening, I'll be giving a brief presentation to outline the purpose of our study, what's going on in terms of the background and context of the property, which I'm sure many of you know very well and have been following very closely, and then a consideration of some of the potential uses which we might be seeing there. We'll also be doing interactive surveying as we go through the presentation, and then opening up the audience to a forum type Q&A session where we'll be noting your comments and providing answers the best we can and taking that information back. So just before I get into the first initial survey, I just wanted to make a few statements up front. This is a point in the process thinking about the Union Hospital property where we are looking at and pondering the next steps in how to reuse the property. The decisions to consolidate the hospitals and close the Union property have been made, have been difficult, and I know that many of you have been involved in that process, and it's been trying. But we are here to hopefully start turning the page on that and think about what the property could be in the future. We, as MAPC, being brought in at the behest of the city to help with this next step in thinking about what the properties could be, have little to no control over the parts of this saga which have already occurred, and we're here to help think about the next steps in this process. So I just want to state that up front. And then the next thing I want to state up front is that this is the first in a series of meetings, the first touch with the community where we're trying to get an understanding of what your perspectives are. We'll have a second meeting on September 17th, and I'll repeat that date at the end of the presentation as well, in the same room at the same time, where we'll be coming back to the community with some options and alternatives which reflect upon what we've heard this evening and try to move that conversation forward. So we're trying something a little bit new for myself. I've never facilitated it this way, and what we're going to do is both invite your participation through a survey with your cell phones. If you don't have a cell phone or don't want to use a cell phone, we also have some paper copies and pen as well. So while we're handing these out, if you have a cell phone and want to use it, please get it out. And you can start getting yourself set up through your text message app. Looks like maybe most people are going to use the paper version. Maybe a couple cell phone users. That's pretty cool, I hope.
Thank you.
All right, so hopefully those papers are getting passed around. We do have a few more. We need to, looks like Mark's still got some in his hand. How many people are using a cell phone? You look like you got connected okay? Yep. All right. So the contact that you're sending the message to is the number 22333. And then the actual text in the text message is MAPC MTG. So the number would be the contact that you're sending to. All right, looks like we're mostly settled in. So you can both write your answer on the paper or send it in by cell phone. But do one or the other, please, not both. So we'll get a pretty good representation of the room. The question that we're first asking is, what is your primary relationship to Union Hospital? So if you have more than one relationship to Union Hospital, what do you first and foremost think of yourself as? A patron, employee, neighbor, supporter, or other? And you can mark that on the sheet, or you can have the text back the letter that corresponds. So this should update, for those who are using the cell phone, it should update in real time to reflect the answers that are being given in the audience. So it looks like from the responses so far that the majority of the responders are neighbors, which is unfortunately the color white, so you don't see that portion of the pie chart. Okay, does everyone have an answer ready that has submitted? Okay. So we'll move on to the next question. The next question is relative, where do you live in relation to Union Hospital? You live neighboring the property? Are you in Ward 1? In the city, more generally? Maybe a little farther afield, somewhere on the North Shore, or somewhere else altogether? Great. Thank you very much. And this is a open-ended question, so we're putting a lot of trust out there for those of you using the cell phones, so keep it clean, please. And if you'd like to respond to what brought you to tonight's meeting. So what is there a single issue or statement that you're really out here for tonight? And this can be phrases or words. You don't have to just use letters. Thank you. Great. Thank you very much. Still a few more? Okay. And then the last question in this introductory survey. Well, what is your top priority or goal for the Union Hospital property? Some of those are too small to read in the back. Updated information, compatibility with neighbors, single-family homes, no retail and no large apartment complex, tax-based property but not retail, leaving wooded area behind our home, don't destroy the woods with whatever is done. Enhance the area, not crowd the area. Okay. Thank you very much for bearing with us on that technological adventure. And we'll just keep your cell phones available for those of you who have been using it. We'll revisit. You don't have to reopen the survey, and just let it be for a moment, and we'll get back into it in a second. So I just want to give a little bit of context for the survey before we return to your input, which this evening it really and truly is about, and set some parameters for what we're talking about this evening. So about this study, most of you know the property that we're looking at are those properties which are associated with Union Hospital. And those are both on Lynnfield Street and Woodland Avenue North. And you can see those properties highlighted on a three-dimensional aerial photograph here. This study was requested by the city. It's paid for in part by the North Shore Medical Center, and also MAPC has provided some funding for the study as well. And the process is facilitated by MAPC. We are a sort of neutral planning party. We're exploring the future potential of the North Shore Medical Center property and documenting your preferences, the community's preferences, identifying shared goals for the property, and ultimately recommending zoning, which would be the outcome of our study, which then the city could pursue to approve to the city council. Tonight we're opening a conversation. As I mentioned, that conversation will continue in September. And we're really here this evening to learn about your vision for the property. This is a very small part of a larger process, a process which you all have been involved in before this evening. There were announcements for consolidation of the facilities. We're here at that center location marker between 2018 and 2019. And our study is a few months long, so not even that entire time period. New facilities will be operational at some point in 2019. And then the redevelopment of the property, the topic of our study, is what would occur after the new facilities are operational. We can't dictate what will happen on the site. We can create a vision and set the parameters, mostly through zoning, for what might happen on the site. But what will happen on the site ultimately will be left to real estate market conditions and circumstances. And then through this process, we'll provide illustrations based upon your input of what those possible futures will look like and bring those back to you for your comment at the next meeting. So here's our study in terms of its months. We got underway in July. I've done some existing conditions analysis and a site visit in August. We've met with some of the stakeholders, including this community meeting this evening. We're trying to confirm with you all the goals and potential opportunities. The second meeting in September, we'll bring in final zoning recommendations, building upon that conversation. So the way we see this process is a pretty simple Venn diagram. That we're searching for shared interests between at least 3 parties, maybe more parties. For example, we say property owner. North Shore Medical Center is the current property owner. They're not likely to be the future property owner. Could be a developer. Could be another developer after that. The city of Lynn, generally thinking about the city in a more holistic way, about the interest, the tax base, circulation, and then the neighborhood. I think mostly the people representing the neighborhood are in this room, and what your concerns are as abutters, as neighbors, as potential recipients of impacts. We're looking for, hopefully, optimistically and idealistically, something that could intersect all of those interests and look for a way to move something forward on the property in terms of its reuse. A little history for the hospital. A special permit approval was granted in 1950. And after that time, a building fund was launched. The building was completed in 1953. At about that time, the property's value in terms of a real estate perspective changed from the surrounding context of single-family homes into something more, something different, a hospital. And that's what the land will be thought of in the current context based upon those decisions some time ago. Lynn Hospital merged with Union Hospital in the 80s, and the hospital was acquired by North Shore Medical Center in the 90s. And the hospital and healthcare landscape continues to evolve. We've seen that across the region, not just in Lynn or the North Shore. A few examples of what that evolution has looked like. Malden Hospital has been closed. It closed in 1999. Is still owned by Hallmark Health and has been had various development proposals come forward over the years. And is zoned single-family residential, just as the Union Hospital property is, and has a proposal currently for about 250 units of housing on the site. That's not approved, it's still underway. It's been a long process they've been a part of. Quincy Hospital, 14.9 acres. The site closed more recently in 2014. It was purchased by a developer, Fox Rock, and they're looking for, it's a larger transit-oriented site, so a different context than what we're talking about here. But they're looking for a proposal of about 600 units on that South Shore site. And then a completed process has occurred out in Arlington, the Sims Hospital, the 17.6 acre site, so all very similarly sized as Union Hospital. It closed in 1992. The town of Arlington acquired the site themselves through their redevelopment authority, and then went through a process of disposition themselves, which ultimately ended up in 176 housing units and an assisted living facility, which was completed in 2013. So that's a context of similar properties which have been part of a similar dynamic in the healthcare industry that have resulted in a reuse over time, which does take some time to complete in terms of the process of redevelopment. So these diagrams represent the type of information that we're using digitally to help us create some illustrations and ideas as we're exploring based on your feedback this evening. So within the city of Lynn, you all know where we are, but that's a half mile radius around the site, mostly single family residential. The Lynn Woods is there as a prominent open space feature in the city. You can see the corner of it here, just outside the center of our site. You can see there again the aerial photograph of the property. And here's a similar depiction of the digital model we're using to look at it in scale to explore some of those potential uses. And this is all based upon the state's GIS information and the city's GIS information. And there's another view with Lynnfield Street down at the bottom of the property. You can see what would be the wooded property with the parking lot above it with Woodland Avenue North. So I'm going to use this view to just walk through some of the characteristics of the property from a redevelopment perspective. You can see Lynnfield Street is to the right, Woodland Avenue bisects straight down the middle, and at the top of this screen is Dartmouth Street, which is a residential street just adjacent to the property. So the future medical village is in process and underway in terms of its approvals with the city. It is about a 5-acre property, which is a part of the current North Shore Medical Center campus. You can see there the area that would be a part of that new facility. And that facility will not be a part of the disposition process. So that will be a new facility which is built, 37,000 square feet, the medical village property with urgent care, lab and radiology services, primary care, and specialty care practices. And that is the building block that you see here, which in terms of our reuse study is effectively off the table because it was being reused already as a part of that property with surrounding landscape and parking. So we're looking at about 9.7 acres in the rear, the Woodland Avenue North area, and about 4.5 acres off the Lynnfield Street frontage. That's not to say that all of that area is developable. So there are wetlands. You can see the blue areas here on the Woodland Avenue North property are wetland features. There's also potentially wetland streams, which require confirmation as to what exactly they are. And those wetlands have buffers that are associated with them. The city has a 30-foot no-build buffer around wetlands and a 100-foot buffer, which would capture any activity within them for review. That's not to say you can't do things within the 100 feet, but the 30-foot is generally a no-go area. Similar wetland features don't exist on the front of the property, and so you can see here that that would have some limitations on the potential reuse of the area. The current property, as you know, is zoned R1, which is the single-family detached residential district. In that, single-family detached residences are allowed by right. There are some other uses which are allowed by special permit. I won't list them all, but just to give you an example, group residence, commercial greenhouse, poultry, fowl preparation, billboards, cemeteries, funeral homes, hospitals. The only thing as of right is a single-family detached home on a 10,000 square foot lot with 75-foot frontage. So that's the current zoning. And that's not to say that that is the zoning that future opportunities would be judged against, and that's one of the things that we're really wanting to focus your feedback on this evening, is if there's any other opportunity that would be acceptable in terms of thinking about zoning from the city's perspective to help this property have a future life. So if you get your surveys and your phones ready again, we'll go through a series of uses and judge your reaction to them. And this is very important and helpful information for us to get what is a great turnout this evening, and to hopefully get a pretty representative sample of your community's thoughts on a variety of uses, starting with the back property. So right now we're only thinking about the Woodland Avenue North property, the 9.7 acres in the rear. And we're isolating them for a bit of a reason.
Question, just to be sure, it's only the dark gray area that is owned by the hospital in town, and the green area is owned by, a lot of that's just woods.
Yes,
That's not up for redevelopment.
potentially. So the question was, what is exactly the boundary of ownership of the hospital today? The area that we've outlined here is all owned by North Shore Medical Center. As was pointed out, what's green here is woods. So we're not showing all the trees on this diagram, but they are woods. What you see in the gray here is the existing parking lot. Potentially, all of that, parking lot and woods, with the exception of the wetland areas, which I described earlier, would be available for redevelopment as single-family homes under the current zoning. And I'll show you an illustration of that after we get through some of these survey questions. So right now we're thinking of that back area, and I'll just go through some of those uses very quickly. You can either put them down on the piece of paper or on the cell phone. Again, if you haven't connected, if you want to dial to the contact is 22333, and the initial text message that you're sending to get connected is MAPC MTG, all one line. And then once you send that in to 22333, you should get a text message back that says you're connected.
Just before you go further ahead in this, it's easy to ask now, I hate to interrupt, but that's the zoning now. Just so I'm sure, it can be rezoned.
Right.
Okay.
So
That's all I want to know.
the question was about the zoning, but I'll just clarify a
But
little
it can
bit.
be rezoned.
Yeah, so the
So it's
current,
not zoned for single-family homes, but that could change.
correct. The current zoning is, as I described, the single-family residential district. This process, one of the major outcomes of this process is to see if there are other zoning recommendations that could be made, which would be community supported. So zoning, through this study, we could initiate a zoning change for something that you might want to see. Okay, so anyone who's newly connected, everyone's all set and connected? Mark's got a sheet in the back if you don't have a sheet. All right, off we go. So the first, just to give you an example before the survey opens, is single-family homes on a standard lot. That's what the current zoning is. That's what is mostly in the context today. Do you think that should single-family homes on a standard lot be considered for Woodland Avenue North, the rear part of the property? You can answer yes, no, or not sure. Not sure could also capture don't care or other answers.
Is that showing the voting?
Yes, so this,
This is live voting.
correct. So anyone that's voting with a cell phone, not the paper, we're not that technologically savvy. Anyone voting with a cell phone, as they submit their answer, the bar would change based upon that answer. Oh yes, and please do, if you're filling out the paper portion of it, hand it back to us at the end, because we'll tally everything together, so every vote is counted. Okay, so it looks like,
Just for future presentations, I think it would be helpful if, it's, in addition to that 86% and this whatever
So we'll be also compiling all of this information and reporting it out. We'll find a place to put it on the website, which people can get to, and we'll tabulate the total number of votes as well as
Right,
the
but
percentage
I'm saying for future things,
as we do it live.
as we do it live,
I'll see.
that would be helpful.
Okay.
Just an observation, when you're showing the graph like this, you know, how many people, percentage of yes, no, or not sure votes. That's only those who are texting it in.
Exactly.
That is now trying to, and I don't wanna be judgmental, but it gives the impression that it's trying to influence the thinking and responses of those who are not texting in. So I think that that's very misleading, and I think it's very slanted.
Understood.
And I
Knowing
don't
that we
agree with
can't
the
change that, I hear the criticism, and I appreciate that. We'll try to correct our processes because we are a planning agency that's always trying to improve. But in the meantime, in this meeting, if you're filling out a paper form, don't pay attention to the screen until you filled out your answer. Okay? Okay? Well, just that's the only fix we have in this moment. So let's tread on.
You could just question if everyone is finished completing their form before you show
Oh, okay.
the information.
Let's do it that way. Great point. If you have a paper form, before I put the screen onto the next question, answer your next question on the paper form, which is single family, actually I have an image here. Single family homes with a compact lot. So this could be, what you see on the screen is an example from Concord. This is Concord Riverwalk. It's called a compact cottage community, 13 units. The units range from 1,300 to 1,700 square feet. They're very tightly sited together around a common open space, and then have a substantial amount of open space on the site left around them. Please fill out your paper forms, and I'm going to switch it to the screen next.
How do you plow that?
Question about that, is that an over 55 development?
I don't think this particular example is. But the example is just more generally about a single family home on a smaller compact lot.
When you say a smaller compact lot, you mentioned that there was more common space. Does that account for the smaller lot? Like, there's more houses, sure, but would more of the wood be preserved?
That's typically one of the benefits of this type of approach, is that you could get the same number of a 10,000 square foot lot on the whole site into a smaller area and potentially preserve more.
I just wouldn't want to say yes to this if it was, small lots and then duplicated around.
Understood. Maybe if you have a sheet, you could also just note it on the sheet that would be a concern. Thank you. So I'm going to skip to the screen now. Okay, so everyone who's using the cell phone can use that and answer whether or not you think that's a yes, no, not sure.
Where do you get those numbers anyway?
So what's wrong with this process? I gotta say this. You're asking these people their opinions of what you're gonna do to their homes and their properties, and you're taking a survey, and nobody knows. You don't know what they're after. You don't know what they're after. Nobody knows what they're after. And they're asking you what you want. No, they're telling you what you want.
Well, we're actually framing opportunities. As I return to that very simple.
Yeah, but you're taking a survey, you're asking people who have been given zero information until they walked in this room, and you're asking them their opinion of what they want this property to be used for.
What they would like to see as an.
How do they know when they don't even, this is the first they've even heard of it?
You gotta start on square one somewhere.
You don't start by asking you what you want with the property when you don't even know what's going on.
This is a process.
Yeah, it's a process, all right.
We are trying to.
So it's a
as best we
recall
can
petition.
to get information about the community's preferences.
How can I have a preference when this is you've given us no data and you walk right in and give us a survey?
What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? How do we know what we want? Nobody's told us what you want to do.
He's here to assist us.
No, he's not assisting us. He's asking
Well,
us
if
a
you're gonna be
survey
negative,
of
you're
what you
one
want.
person who's negative. Let the process continue.
Let's
He
continue.
represents the state agency,
So we,
not mine.
we don't actually have, we're not a developer or the development team. That party isn't present in this room. Who are present in this room are people who can tell. the
Everybody who's
developer-
had prior information to this, to what is being shoved down our throats, raise your hand. You knew in advance. You knew in advance what was, you knew about the meeting, but did you know what the plans were?
All right, we're gonna.
No.
We're gonna move on.
Yes,
It's been in the paper, it's been around now for 2 years.
We,
So,
if we get,
There are no plans.
well,
So-
of course, that's what they're asking for.
I apologize, but I really would like to get through the survey, and then the rest of the time will be open Q&A, and then we'll invite all criticism and comment at that time. So let's just try to get through this, because I do want to get through the second one, which is the Lynnfield frontage. So we're just going through in order of increasing density is the pattern here, okay? So I'll clue you into that. So 2-family homes, please on your sheets, if you're using sheets, mark if you think on the back property, a 2-family home would be okay or not okay.
I have another suggestion. Would it be helpful for us just to have a show of hands of anybody who's using a cell phone? Because then we would have a concept of what these percentages mean.
No, after the fact, after we
Yeah.
vote, we can see, we can see what people vote.
Oh, sorry. So is everyone done with the sheet real quick? I'll just try to go through this quickly so we can get moved along, because I don't want the people to get too impatient with this. So just please quickly put in your cell phone votes. Appreciate your patience. But we really are trying to get a feel for what the community wants to see, because there's no sense in going down a certain road if the community's gonna fight it tooth and nail all the way. Okay, is everyone good? All right, we'll go to the next one. The next is still, again, another step up in terms of density of residential. We're thinking about only residential on that back property. So a row house or a townhouse, or are we just planners off the rails now? But you let us know, we'll take that feedback. So you've got that marked on your sheets. All right. And then here's the poll. So this would be, the example we showed was in Sherburne, Massachusetts. It was 18 units, and there were 3 units per each of those buildings. So you can see in this here, there would be 3 units, so that's a connected townhouse. Okay, thank you very much. And then this is the last survey option for the rear property multifamily, which would be a step up from a townhouse in terms of density. So this is in Manchester by the sea. It's 60 units as an example. We're not thinking about a specific number of units, but just this type of housing. So a more dense type of housing. Just gotten too big, or is it okay? Okay, mark it on the sheet there. And quickly on the cell phone. And again, we'll gather all of both the hand copies and the cell phone copies and tabulate all the numbers, and get these back out in a very transparent format. Right? Oh, sorry, there was one more. Senior living. So this would be age restricted of some kind, probably of a higher density. This one example is in Carlisle, Massachusetts. It's called Benfield Farms. It's 26 units. They're common areas for senior residents. And so, as that simple Venn diagram points out, the community input is a big part of what we want to see in terms of feasibility of those sites. There's also the market, which we're also studying in this study. A market study might say that, for example, senior living, this isn't a good site for it. So we need to take all those considerations into account. And we're looking for something that would fit with all considerations. And then lastly, should open space be considered for Woodland Avenue North? So this might be a portion of it as open space. I'm not sure that it would be all of it as open space unless there was a benefactor of some kind that would be willing to make that happen. And it could be also combined with a cluster development, as was mentioned in one of the comments, one of the questions. So maybe more, the same number of houses as would be allowed by current zoning on a smaller portion of the site. That's what. And then one last open-ended question for the Woodland Avenue property. Please write on your sheets and put it on the screen. What other possibilities beyond those which we've mentioned should be considered for the Woodland Avenue North rear portion of the property, or none, no more? A lot of nuns, some parks, assisted living, recreational outdoors, no blasting, senior housing, assisted living, nothing more. The senior living and assisted living facilities are a little tricky because sometimes they're operated under commercial zoning. I think it depends on the services that they provide, and it would probably require a zoning change of some kind. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the front property. So we'll get through this also quickly, and then we'll open it up to make sure that we have unstructured conversation. So thank you for your patience with our structuring of this conversation. So looking at the Lynnfield Street property with the frontage there, about 4.5 acres. This is where the hospital facility is today. Also parking lots on the Lynnfield frontage and the rear parking area at Woodland Avenue North. I think you're all connected now or using the paper. So first, starting off at a little higher density for that front property. Row houses and townhouses. You see something, I guess really what we're trying to gauge here is, do you see the two halves or two portions of the property as different or the same? So is this an area that you would see something different on the Lynnfield property, whereas you might think of the rear portion of the property a little differently, lower density or higher density? That's really what we're trying to understand.
Can I just add a
comment for people to think about as they answer the questions. And two obvious factors are traffic and I guess impact on the local school. So just thought process.
And those, not in a perfect way, but those types of impacts will be thought about in this study once we zero in on some potential intersections. Sorry, the question was about considering impacts such as traffic or school-age children in terms of development that might occur. And we will be thinking about those impacts relative to what's there today. Through this study, we cannot solve for those impacts perfectly because we don't know exactly what might happen, but we will be thinking. So, you've had enough time to think about it. For the front portion of the property, row houses or townhouses? Yes or no? The question was, what's the difference? There's not too much difference from an architect's standpoint. Row house is how your current City of Lynn zoning refers to this building type. A row house and a townhouse are pretty similar. Townhouse, I think people sometimes like better than the word row house, which is
Yeah, that's what
associated with more past